Yeah, can you? Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, yes. Hey, Thaddeus. Good afternoon, Jeremiah. Thank you guys for being here at Assembly. We are going to start off with a word of prayer, and then we're going to get right into it with introducing our speaker. So I'd like to ask Chaplain Rufo if he can come up here and have prayer for us.
All right, let's pray. Father, great is your faithfulness, great is your love, great is the power in our God to transform lives. Lord, I just ask that your love is translated to our ears through Pastor Andy's whole family. Lord, may we hear what we need to hear about how God's love goes through families. Lord, I just ask that you continually lead us, guide us, help these students to finish strong through their midterms and be glorified in our lives. We pray this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
So last year we had an assembly right around Valentine's, and it was about relationships. And I think a lot of students really enjoyed that one. So we wanted to bring Pastor Andy back. And today he is joined by his wife Christina and their daughter Sophie. Okay. Sophia or Sophie? She goes by Sophie. Okay. So I want you guys to go ahead and give them a warm welcome. And we'll just ask them to go ahead and take their seats.
Well, good afternoon, SWAU. It's always good to be here. And I got so many positive responses from the assembly that we did last year around this time. Does anyone remember what it was about? Not really, right? But, I mean, some of you weren't here, so you get a pass, right? But it was essentially like, it'll be familiar to you when I say it was about understanding the pond. Remember, that was like the title? And essentially it was just like, I sent out a survey, which not too many of you filled out, but enough. I think it was about 30 to 50 people or so, but I was expecting like 200 at least to respond. In terms of like, what are some of the things you look for in relationships? Not because any of them may have necessarily been good or bad, but just for you to understand what it is that other people on campus are looking for, right? Like one of the examples, and I do want to get in our message today, was sort of like a lot of people are looking for people who are very spiritual, right? And so this raises the question again, if you're not coming to Sabbath school, if you're not involved in your church, if you don't talk about Jesus in a way that he's your friend, then you also ought not to be surprised why so many people on campus might not be interested in you. Right? That's all it was about, like understanding the environment you're in, understanding what people around you are looking for so that you can better see if this is what they are expecting of the men on campus, if this is what they're expecting of the girls and the women on campus. Then to try and foster an environment where we can help each other be the best version of ourselves that we can be, right? In terms of treating each other with respect. And we thought as a follow-up to that, so that's a nutshell. If you want, I'm not sure, maybe it's online, you'll just have to go back a year to find it. But it was very interesting, even for me, to see what the responses were for that. This time we thought we would take a look at something called the Great Communication Divide. I mean, if I was to ask you, what is it that makes great relationships great? What would you say? Give me a few responses, just shout it out loud. Not all at once, but raise your hand like we're in a class. I like some feedback. Yes? Good, Ezra.
Unity between the two parties.
Sorry? Unity between the two parties. Good. Yes. Okay. Perfect acceptance of an imperfect person. Very good. Yes, Thaddeus.
At the risk of redundancy, communication is key.
Communication is key. Exactly. I would suggest to you, there are many reasons that people might say, well, it's the love, it's the way they make me feel, it's the things we get to do, the shared experiences we have together. They're just fun to be with, all things which are good. But I'm going to say it in a way that perhaps you don't hear it as commonly said. And that is, a relationship is really only as good as its conflict resolution skills. And this is true of all relationships. We're not just talking about romantic relationships. This is true in friendships as well. Life will throw things at you that you will not expect. How you weather that, how you get through that in the community you're in is going to say a lot about who you are, a lot about who they are. And sometimes it's easy to be friends with people when everything is going fine. It's harder to be friends with people when you find you have great differences. That's usually when the friendships break up. That's usually when relationships start to break up. And we thought that we would talk a little bit about the differences in particular between the way in which men reason and try to solve problems and communicate, because men's minds are quite different to women's minds, if you haven't already noticed. And also talk a little bit about how women process things and go through things and how they see things. Because oftentimes what appears as he doesn't love me, she doesn't love me, is just a difference in the way in which our mind is wired. Does that make sense? And understanding that we're different can often help us not mischaracterize a situation or misinterpret a situation into something it's not, and then be hurt over something we never really should be hurt about in the first place. Does that make sense? And the only way to really understand and to move past this is, get this, to communicate. You have to talk about it. And so I also want to, if we could have that slide that comes up, because as we're speaking up here, there is a QR code that will come up on the screen. I want you to be able, we're going to try and end about 5 to 7 minutes early. And I probably won't be able to get all of your questions, but if there's anything that we're talking about, specifically about communication or anything else, feel free to send them in. Again, I can't guarantee I'm going to get through all of them, but we'll try to end around like 1:40-ish so that we have those last 5 minutes or something to sort of address some of these questions. And I will get them here on my computer and I will be able to answer them. One of the first things I want to share, besides, again, that a relationship is only as good as its problem-solving skills, is that it's often helpful, at least the way in which Christina and I have viewed relationships, particularly the marriage relationship, in terms of like a relational bank. You all know what a bank is, right? You all know in principle how the banking works. Like you make deposits along the way, right? And then at times you need to make withdrawals. You need to use some of the funds that have been put in there. What makes a lot of relationships mismatched is that they aren't putting enough deposits in the bank, but they're making a lot of withdrawals. Particularly when it comes to conflict resolution is the withdrawal from that relational bank. So you want to make sure, particularly if you're engaging in a romantic relationship or potentially romantic relationship, you are trying to put as many deposits in there as you possibly can. What are deposits like? Well, words of affirmation, things that you appreciate about the person, going out to eat, little things like holding hands, whatever, showing. You may not do that right away, but as the relationship progresses, all these little signs, Ellen White calls them the early attentions. These are the things that you can place in the relational bank that sometimes don't require that much effort, but show that you miss the person. Like a little text, thinking of you, right? I miss you when I'm away from you. I wish we could be together. Things like that are deposits in the relational bank so that when difficult times come, and trust me, they will, sometimes because people are different people, but also sometimes because life, again, throws something your way that you least expect. And you want to find someone who you don't just get along with and is just fun to be with. You want those things, but that's not it. But someone who is going to work through the storm with you, who's going to make it, who's committed to the relationship in such a way that we will keep talking about this, we will keep communicating about this until we come to a satisfactory solution or resolution to it. All right. Do you want to talk a little bit about how conflict resolution has to do with your reflection on God and your personal walk with God?
Yeah. I don't love being up front, but if I have to be, I'm happy to be up here with him. I'm not really sure what to say about that, except that when you have a walk with God, it doesn't mean you're a perfect person, but it does mean you're more likely to turn to God in prayer. And if you have a difficult conversation that you need to have, maybe you can both start it out with prayer, end it up with prayer. It really is a reflection of your walk with God, because if there's a conflict and you just close up, and I guess we'll talk about those different approaches. Some people just avoid it, they don't want to talk about it, or they yell and they fight really bad, but it doesn't come to a conclusion. But ideally, if we're growing with Jesus, he's going to help us to learn to solve problems better. And so if your tendency is the avoidant one, or if your tendency is the one who's too overly emotional in the conflict, then you're willing to grow and to change. And if you're dating someone who shows that willingness, that's one of the best signs, because you're never going to find a perfect person. But if you find someone who's like, you know what, I love God, God has been growing me, and I've seen changes in my life, and then you'll see in that person, as conflict comes up, you'll see the willingness to change and be like, you know what, I did get too upset about that. I jumped to conclusions before we talked through it calmly. Sorry, and I'll do better next time. And so I think our walk with God doesn't mean that we're perfect in conflict resolution, but there will be a change over the years, and that's happened with Andy and me because we've been married 17 years, and we've certainly improved in our conflict resolution, and that's because both of us...
I've certainly improved. She's perfect.
No, I'm not perfect. But both of us have that desire to grow because that comes from loving Jesus.
Yeah.
It helps
Think
you want to
think
change.
about, like, none of us are perfect, right? And we often have to go to our knees in prayer to God for him to forgive us and for him to help us to do better. If we accept rebuke, so to speak, from God, we ought to accept it from people who love us and care for us. You see, the important thing about a relationship, particularly a relationship that is working its way towards marriage, and again, disclaimer, at least from us, I don't see any other reason why you should enter into any kind of relationship if you don't at least potentially see marriage in the end. I know that might not be very popular in today's world, but I'm telling you, you're wasting your time and you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. If you just want company, make friends, be with friends, hang out with friends. Like, you can do things exclusively with friends, but don't do it too much with the opposite sex, because then it's going to seem like you're exclusive and something's happening between you, which may not necessarily be the case.
And
Right?
if
Unless
right
that's the way
one-
you want it to go, then of course do.
And then if the right one comes along, they'll just assume you're dating that person, and you might miss someone
Miss
who
the
would be better
window.
matched for you.
Yeah, exactly. So when we talk about, who else is going to tell you that your breath stinks? Who else is going to tell you that you should, I'm trying to think of different stuff like that, the way in which you deal with a certain situation isn't really right. That the way in which, like, you overreacted there or something like that. Like some people, like, stick, you play tricks on each other in school or something like that, stick a note on the back of someone's shirt saying, like, whatever it says. Like, someone who cares about you will tell you, hey, you got something on the back of your shirt. Someone who cares about it. Someone who doesn't will be just laughing and let you go along with it, right? So when you find someone who cares about you, and often they're in your immediate circle, for most of us, not all of us, parents are that first person to us who tell us, like, no, you shouldn't have done that, you should do this. These are the rules. They're trying to teach us appropriate ways in which to behave and to face life without having to sort of try and do it our own and then wonder, why does everyone not like me? Well, maybe no one likes me because every time I'm in a group, I have to have things my way. And when it doesn't happen, I shout and I overreact, and that's why people don't want to be with me. Someone who cares about you would and should tell you that, so that you're not confused,
So
like,
then
this is the reason why.
your response of gratitude instead of defensiveness shows an attitude toward growth, a growth mindset.
Yeah. And you want to find someone who's going to be there to help you through, especially, as you're approaching that stage, as you date and as you hopefully fall more and more in love with each other, if they're the right person, and get to know each other more, you're ideally looking for a partner to go through life with. Like, it's you guys against the world. They're not your enemy, they're your friend. They're trying to help you get to that finish line. And I'm helping Christina as much as she's helping me, and she helps me a lot more than I help her. But nevertheless, she's not my enemy. So when she has to tell me something that I need to change, or that I should at least think about, I should not be immediately defensive about it. I should hear her out. Now, that's a lot easier said than done, right? Because in the moment, it sounds nice in theory, but in the moment, you're kind of like, I don't really want to deal with that. All right. It's really important in any relationship, particularly ones that are directed towards romance and a future life partner. And I know you've heard this, it's such a such a stereotypical answer, if you will, especially from Christians, that everyone has like a God-shaped hole in their heart, right? That only God can fill. But there's so much truth to that, because if you are looking for your partner to fill something in your life that only God can fill, you will never be happy with anyone that you end up with. You're setting yourself up for failure from the very beginning. As much as I love Christina and I care for her and I do nice things for her, I will never be able to do for her what God can do for her. And if she doesn't have that relationship with God, so that when I am deficient, she gets her value first and foremost from God, then she will, as much as she likes me, I hope, right? She won't be seeking me to fill that void in her life. You're setting up the person on like a level that they will never be able to reach, because we are not God, we are imperfect. And we will always let each other down, not every single day and all the time, right? But there will be times where that happens. And this is why your grounding in God is so important.
When I was in undergrad, there was a music group that came, and they asked the question, where do you draw your value from? So I'm asking you that question now. Where do you get your value from? Where do you derive it from? Your what you're going to do? Right now you're studying to become something. At that time I was already doing the job I was studying for, and I knew I was good at it, and I thought, well, I derive a lot of value from being a violin teacher, and eventually I'll have my master's in it. And at that time I thought, I get value from that, but that's not where I get my main value. And they said, okay, how about, what else could it be other than your occupation? Do you derive your self-worth from your looks? So you've got good hair or a good body? I was like, no, I mean, it's nice to have that, but that'll change when you get old. And then they said, the only place to derive value that will never change is from the cross and what Jesus did there for us. What God thinks of you is more important than anything your boyfriend can ever think of you, or your husband can think of you, or your friends, or what they say about you. What God thinks of you is who you are. That's where you derive value, and you're so valuable that he came from heaven to die just for you. And so it's really important before you get into a dating relationship that you have that kind of self-worth. Or if you're in a relationship, that you find that self-worth in God. If you start reading the Bible a few minutes every morning, and a little bit more and a little bit more, your self-worth and your value will rise, because time with God just does that to you. And so after you have that kind of mooring, grounding for yourself in where you derive your value, your relationships will change. They'll change with your friends, they'll change with your boyfriend or girlfriend, they'll change with your spouse if you're married, with your professors. Every relational aspect of your life will be different, because you now know that nothing matters but what God says about you, and he says that you're priceless.
Beautiful. All right, we need to keep moving because we only have about 10-15 minutes left, and we're only on point 2. All right, so it's really important. I think we should talk a little bit about the differences between the male brain and the female brain, right? And again, I want to just put a disclaimer out there at the beginning. When we say the things we're going to say, these are generalizations. You know what a generalization means? It means that when I say men are like this, I'm meaning most men are like this, but not every man is like this. Don't think you're not a man because you don't fit in this cookie cutter. I'm not trying to do a cookie cutter. It's just that there's a lot of research that's done that shows men think about things differently. They process things differently, as well as women do. This isn't wrong, it's just different. Does that make sense? When you understand that, and we'll give you a few examples, particularly in our relationship, it helps you understand each other so much more. So I'm going to start by talking at least the way in which the male brain works, and then you can tell them about how a woman's mind works. But just to keep things simple, in a general sense, men's mind work by being very much like, I heard someone portray it like men have boxes or like a file system in their brain. And when they open up a certain box, that's the only box that they are in. You follow what I'm saying? So when it's study time, it's like, that's all I'm doing. You're talking to me while I'm reading? I don't hear you. I'm reading the words on this page. I'm in the garage, I'm trying to, do an oil change on the car, and you're speaking, or you're asking me what we need at the store. I did not hear you because I'm thinking, where does this nut and bolt go? And, I should probably have taken it to a mechanic and things like that, right? So this notion of boxes compartmentalized. So I need to go away from this box or close that box, and then I can open up another box and then dialogue. This is why it's so important in terms of attention. This is why, so many people, a lot of guys, they'll come home after work and they'll watch TV. And the wife's asking him, oh, what about this, and make sure when you go to the store you get this. And it's like, he doesn't hear anything you're saying. He's watching the TV. If you want his attention, you need to say, can you please, either mute it, or I'll wait till a commercial comes on or something. Please focus on my box, then tell them. It's not that he doesn't care about you. That's why he didn't hear you. It's the mind doesn't work that way in general for most men. Does that make sense? Another thing that's really important when considering men's minds is we have a box that we particularly like. It's called the nothing box. Some of you are smiling because you know what it is. It's sometimes our favorite box to be in because it's where we like to chill, right? Men, unlike many women, and it's not all women, but most women typically tell us what is it like to think about nothing? Their minds are just constantly going. I'm not trying to get ahead, but it's everything's connected to everything else. For men, this is not the case. We have a box, and then we have another box. And if we have to, we'll draw connections between them, but it'll be a slow connection, and then we're going to be in that other box. And if things get too overwhelming for us, we're going to go to our nothing box. Or if we have a long day, and we're exhausted mentally or physically, we're going to go to our nothing box. Because our mind simply just can't process it, which is why don't talk about something super crucial and super important in your relationship at 11 at night. We need to discuss this. After you've had 2 exams that day and you went to the gym and you did that and you were so busy you didn't have dinner. You're hungry, you're tired, and now at 11 o'clock, she wants to talk about. You follow what I'm saying?
But the way you do that is very important. So many
Yes.
times I've been because I'm a woman, and in general women have a lot to say, and that's just the way God made us. And he's exhausted, and he's like, honey, what you're saying is really interesting, and I want to talk about it, and I want to hear the rest of it, but I can't even hold my eyes open. Can we talk about this? And we'll set a time, because when you're parents, you need to find a time where you can talk about things. And then we'll say either tomorrow night, or if we have something going on that night, we'll do the next day. But he makes a specific time that it's going to be a time where we can talk about it. Not just, oh, that time never comes, I'm too tired. Imagine if he said, I can't think anymore, I'm tired, I just got to go to sleep. Then I would be feeling hurt. But when he says something like, I'm really interested in what you want to say, but I just can hardly think anymore, then I understand, of course, fair enough. But it's all in the way you phrase things. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. So
one last thing. Whenever, and again, I'm speaking in generalizations, I might say that a few times, whenever a guy wants to solve a problem in a general sense, most men like to think about it by themselves. Most men, not all men, will not want to talk about their problem in a way in which to try and solve it. When I have something that's complicated, I want to be left alone, and I want to have time to think. And I think, what if I do this option? Option A is this, option B. Sometimes I think of options that I know I would never really do, which is why I don't want to talk about it and just say the first thing on my mind, because I often realize I may not actually do this. And the last thing I need to do is say, well, one way we could solve this problem is this, and have Christina just say, what? That's it. It's like, no, I don't mean that way, right? You follow what I'm saying? I like to think through and get through and think in my mind and ask questions in my mind first until I form a kind of I think these are maybe the 2 or 3 options that I think are reasonable, that are good. I like the way I have it phrased in my mind and stuff. Let's go back now and let's talk about it. I do want to address it. It's just I don't want to talk about it right away. Make sense? This is important because especially in a relationship when the woman feels like this is important and it's not avoiding, it's just, I need some time. But let's, again, talk about this tomorrow night a little bit earlier when I don't have the 2 exams, and I'll carve time out. Let's meet from 5 to 6. It's earlier. Like we'll have dinner first, and then we won't be hungry, we won't be as tired, and we'll try to deal with that. Now,
So on the other hand, how a woman solves problems is we like to talk it out. Again, it's all generalizations, but I like to talk the problem out. And when we first got married 17 years ago, he would be like, well, you could do this, you could do that. And I'd be like, no, just listen, let me say it. And he was just like, you have a problem, I love you, I want to help you solve it. Simple to him.
she's coming across as stressed because she has this dilemma that she wants to work through. And 2 minutes into it, I've got 3 options that she could take to help alleviate this stress. And I love her and I don't want her to be so stressed. So I'm offering solutions, but they're not coming across the way in which I would like.
And so we got to the point where we realized now he'll just let me talk it out. And I totally solve the problem by just talking it out loud. And I come to the conclusion in my own mind. But I don't really sit there quietly and think about it to solve a problem. That's what he does. So I would get hurt. I'd be like, why, I'd love to help you solve this problem. Don't you want to talk about it? And understanding the difference between our brains really helped. It was that first year of marriage where you set all the precedents for your future life together. And because of that first year, it's so much easier the rest of the time because I never get offended if he's trying to solve a problem. I'm like, well, he'll come up with something and then we'll talk about it. Or to him, he's never offended if I talk it out loud. He doesn't try to offer the solutions. Many times I ask him for solutions. But in general, I'll just talk it out loud. I'll be, yep, all right, solve that. And he just smiles and he's like, good. But I just needed the listening ear and the care that he would take that time.
Many times it helped me to think of that in order for Christina to process what the problem is and how to solve it, she needs a sounding board. And I feel privileged that she chose me to be her sounding board. I'm happy. I can't tell you, like what she's saying is so true. I don't remember the exact conversations, but I remember many times where we've had conversations where I've literally gone, yep, oh, really? That's it. At the end of it, she has the solution. She's like, thank you so much. And I go,
You're welcome.
You're welcome. I didn't do anything, but Sometimes it's as easy as that. Just remember that. It's a difference in the way in which the mind works. It's nothing personal. And this is really important because a lot of women, like the husband comes home and says, like, why aren't you talking to me? It's like, that's not the way in which I solve problems. Please let me think about it. And very much like when she needs the help, she needs you to be there listening, not watching the TV and going, but focused attention and helping her to. Is there anything else you want to say in terms of how the female brain works? Or
I think that's pretty good. I think we're really going fast over it. Usually we stop and give a lot of examples and stuff when we're talking with people one-on-one. But I think in general that's mostly what we found at the beginning of our relationship. And I wanted to go back to where we were talking about a growth mindset and how that's one of the biggest things to look for in a girlfriend or a boyfriend. When we were first married that first year, Andy would listen to me like a bump on a log. He would just stare at me. And I thought he was thinking about other stuff because he would just sit there and go like that. And so I was
wasn't
like,
in my nothing box.
No, he wasn't.
I
He was
probably
listening,
looked like it.
but I couldn't tell because my girlfriends, they would all say, oh, yeah, oh, really? Wow. Like when you're talking with someone, but he and his guy friends weren't like that. So to me, I was wishing I could have some kind of feedback that he's following and tracking with me. So I was like, do you mind just saying, every once in a while? Or just like, or wow, really? And he was like, it was a new thought to him. And again, this is baby us. We were very young back then and learning to communicate. And he was like, well, I mean, it's going to be hard, but if that's what you need, that's what I'm going to do. And he often tells people, if you would be willing to die for either your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend, how much more should you be willing to just do little things if that's what they need, even though you don't see the value in it? That's what they need. You should be willing to do it. It's easier than laying down your life. And so he started, it took him a lot of effort at first. He'd be like, or sometimes I'd
She
pause,
would pause.
and he'd be like,
She'd give me the look, and that was my cue. Like, yep.
And it made me fall in love with him more because I realized that what was super unnatural for him, he was willing to make the effort to do it because it was something I needed. And now he does it without even thinking. I mean, it only took him, a year or more or less, I don't know. But for a while it was super unnatural, and yet he was willing to do that simple thing for me. And when you see that willingness to change, that shows that you found someone who's really special and rare.
All right, don't make me get emotional up here. All right, speaking about emotions, you should know, particularly with conflict, strong emotions are not necessarily wrong. Strong emotions are actually a good thing. Strong emotions show you that the other person cares about this issue. This is an important issue to them. You may think it's a small issue for you, but if they're getting upset about it, it's not a small issue to them. What you should be more worried about is in a relationship when no one gets mad. When no one gets mad, love is dead. That relationship is, and this is the thing, particularly in many relationships, whether at the boyfriend-girlfriend stage or even in marriage relationships, even worse, these problems build and build and build, and someone who's had trouble in their marriage for like 10 years comes to the pastor and says, "Pastor, can you help us? We're on the brink of divorce." "Well, how long has this been happening for?" "Oh, it's probably at least a decade." My answer is no. I can meet with you, but no, I'm not going to be able to solve in a few sessions what's 10 years in the building. You know what I mean? Like, it's been building up for 10 years. Like, there's no, if it was that easy, like ripping off a Band-Aid, like, then you would have figured it out by now. You should have come and seen someone 9 years ago, maybe 9.5 years ago, right? As soon as you can't find yourself waking, there's nothing wrong with seeking advice, with seeking help, to help you, particularly in terms of this communication and things like that. It's super important. Remember that. Strong emotions tell you there is love still in the relationship, that people care about the relationship, that people are willing to fight for the relationship and willing to work things out. But if ever it's just supposed to be like, "Oh, I don't even get mad anymore," that's the slow but sure cycle that leads to death. And you never want to create an environment in any relationship, particularly in marriage, but even in the boyfriend-girlfriend stage, where the other person cannot be open. If every time they are telling you what they think, you get offended, they will very quickly learn, I can't tell this person what I think. I can't be honest with them, because when I am, I offend them, they're hurt. This is a mismatch. If you want to really know what the other person thinks, you have to be willing to hear it, even if it may hurt at first. Many times you might even misunderstand what they're saying. Sometimes, especially guys, make passing comments. We don't mean to be critical, but it's often taken like it's critical. It's like, that's not what I meant at all, which is why you need to keep communicating and keep talking. So remember that. Getting upset, again, like getting upset shows that you care, but at the same time, I want to say strong emotions, even though I don't think that they're bad, still need to be controlled. You don't get to excuse it and say, well, this is really important to me, therefore I can yell at you. Therefore I can like hit you. Therefore I can like, no. That's, calm down. There's such a thing as showing passion and care. There's such a thing as going overboard and being un-Christ-like. This is why I say at the beginning, the way in which you seek or the way in which you process conflict resolution says a lot to do about your walk with God.
Can I add to that? He's talking about where the emotions are too strong in conflict resolution. It's also equally as damaging if the person retreats. And when I was a kid, there was this one couple in church, and the husband would proudly say, "Our marriage is the best. I have the best wife. We've never had an argument in 30 years. And back then I thought, wow, they must be really happy. Now I know with a bit of life experience, somebody in that relationship wasn't standing up for their needs or their feelings. So if you just stuff it all in, the relationship is very unhealthy. Having arguments is a sign, like you said, that you care about each other. You care what that person thinks. But it's the way you manage your arguments that is very, and I can say disagreements. We have, at this stage of our life, we have very few arguments. In the first year, we had quite a few because we're from different cultures. Eastern Europeans are very different than Americans, or even if you're from different families within the same country, you will still have a different subculture, a different way of looking at things. And so it's really important your first year of dating or your first year of marriage not to stop communicating, not to stuff things in and just say, well, it's okay, I guess this is small, I guess I'll just grin and bear it and not say anything about it. That's not a healthy relationship. You think you might be being the nice guy or something to the other person, but that's not doing the other person a favor, because that person isn't a mind reader. In order to have a healthy relationship, that person needs to know how it made you feel, which maybe would segue into the two
And usually,
sentences.
yeah, I will mention that. Usually when you stuff it down, resentment can begin to build. And it just slowly gets there. It becomes like a volcano. Next thing you know, you dropped a spoon at the table and, whoa, like, what did I do? It's not about the spoon falling down. You follow what I'm saying? Sometimes things happen and conversations happen over things you're wondering, like, can we just go back 10 seconds? Like, I'm sorry I did that. Like, it's not about that. This has been building for a time. And this is why it's so important to communicate, because you let off a little bit of the pressure. You communicate, you understand, oh, maybe I misread the situation, or maybe I didn't misread the situation, but the other person apologizes. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That wasn't the way in which, that's not what I intended. Okay, I understand that. Then that is like a pressure release so that the volcano doesn't have to blow up. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. Yes, you can start looking at some of the questions. But one thing that we found effective, I'm going to give you these 2 sentences. You can write them down if you wish. You don't have to. But these have been tremendously impactful and helpful for our relationship. And often when we do, premarital counseling with couples, we talk about these 2 sentences quite a bit. But it's been really helpful for us to ask the question and to phrase things in terms of communication. When you say or do X, fill in the blank, right? When you say this, or the way in which you did this made me feel like X, fill in the blank. Simple sentence, but it says a lot. When you did this, when you said this, it made me feel like you believe you're more superior than I am, or you made me feel like I wasn't a good spouse, a good girlfriend, a good boyfriend, whatever it may be. Okay, we're getting some good questions, and we need to end so that we can get to those questions. But that's a really helpful, because when you phrase it in that way, you are not insinuating, you always like to make me feel inferior. You see how that communication is wrong? Because you're implying this is what the person is thinking. This is not helpful to trying to resolve anything. Don't insinuate, don't assume things which may not be true. But when you say, when you did this, it made me feel like this, you can't argue with that. The only appropriate response to that is, I'm sorry, that was not my intention. I will try to be more mindful of that next time, because I never want to make you feel inferior, or whatever the fill in the blank is. You follow what I'm saying? It's not that they're saying you're doing it. It's just when you did it or said it, that's the way it made them feel. Well, how can I disagree with you, maybe in a public setting, without putting you down? That's a good conversation to have, but not insinuating that every time you're in public, you always have to disagree with me, you always have to be opposite than me, blah, 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 blah. You follow what I'm saying? This is, again, putting on someone else. The other sentence, which has been really helpful to us as well, particularly as you discuss and as you communicate and as you realize what the real problem is, and as you seek to go towards a solution, another thing is this sentence: what do you need me to do or to say for you to feel loved, for you to feel like this situation has been resolved? It doesn't mean that whatever the other person says is what you have to do, but it lets you know where the other person's mind is thinking. Maybe an apology is enough. Maybe it's going to be an apology and I need you to show effort next time this happens, or next time we're in this situation. Maybe you can make like a keyword or a little like tap on the shoulder in a way that no one's going to know what it means, but you guys will. You follow what I'm saying? What is it that you need me to do or say so that you feel like this situation has been resolved? Because if you don't get there and you've simply identified the problem, but you haven't, and you just say sorry, it's bound to pop up again and again and again.
So we're supposed to end it 45, right?
Yes.
145.
So we've got
I
5.
cannot believe how many good questions, how good they are. I wish we could answer them all, and it's impossible. So let's start quick. I would really like to pick this one, and then you could pick one
Sure,
while
you
I'm
can
talking.
pick. So just hit the present button, and it should come up on the screen so that everyone can see it.
But
You
they
see
might
that
not want people to know who asked the question. I don't know.
No, it will not show your name.
Oh, okay.
It will just show the
question?
Yes, I believe so. No,
That?
no.
You do it.
Okay, but which one?
I wanted to talk about, wait, where did it go? Okay, anyway, the
You
question
find
is,
it again.
is dating outside your beliefs really that big of a deal? And there's a Bible verse, can two walk together unless they be agreed? We've done a lot of marital and premarital counseling, but I can't begin to tell you how many people struggle with smaller things than that. So you want to be as similar to the person you're marrying as you can. And we've seen so many people struggle or break up with even less than being from different churches or different sets of beliefs. What you hold, if that matters to you, that shapes how you're going to raise your kids. It may seem like not a big deal now, but when you have children, it can drive you apart, it can cause divorce, or you'll just end up going toward the way the other person thinks for the sake of peace in the marriage. I believe that even if you feel like there's nobody else in the world, wait, because God will bring that person to you who does believe the way you do. I told my mom that, Mama, there's nobody else out there. I mean, all the guys, they were nice guys, but they're all playing video games, and they're just kind of not really going anywhere in life. And I was just like, they're so nice, but I don't want to go out with them. And she was like, oh, honey, don't worry. All God needs is one, and he can bring him from the other side of the world. And then Andy showed up in my life 1 year later. So never, there can be really good people outside your belief system, but if your belief system matters to you, if you take it seriously, I mean, I don't know what you would add to that question, but I would just say it's the most important decision you make in your life when you're baptized. Then the second most important is who you marry, because that person will either lead you closer to God or you'll find yourself drifting further and further away. And I've seen it in my friends' lives now at 40 years old. I've seen it in my friends that I went to school with and everything, and I would just plead with you, it's much better to find someone who's on the same path as you are.
Just 2 quick things to add to that. I think life is going to throw more things at, like no one, you are all unique, right? You will never find anyone exactly like you. Never. Like I grew up with 2 sisters, right? They're older than I am. We had the same parents, we went to the same schools, we had a lot of the same teachers, and we're different. You will never find anyone who's exactly like you. Given that, you still want to find someone who is at least as similar to you as possible, because what it means is there'll be less conflict in the long run. When we address the question in terms of like your faith and belief system, you're free to do whatever you want, but you are from the get-go choosing to have an issue that is going to create conflict. And it may seem at the beginning like, well, this isn't a good thing, we're Christian, but you wait till the children come along. And then which church do they go to? Where do we go? I want them to go to an Adventist school. I don't want them to go. Like, it's just you're asking for a lot more conflict and a lot more questions to arise, which otherwise would not arise. The second thing I want to say is, just because someone's an Adventist, there's a whole wide variety of what Adventism is. To some degree, I think this is healthy, because I think if we're too cookie cutter, this would not be a good thing. But what I mean by that is you can be unequally yoked marrying another Adventist. Be mindful of that, right? Same thing happened in Israel in ancient times. Like, just because they were an Israelite didn't mean that they were a good person. There were many who are not from Israel who were actually more faithful. The question wasn't because of their denomination or because of their nation or whatever their background. The question was, how dedicated were they to God? And I would say, if you find someone like a Ruth-like person who is not Adventist, but who essentially like wants to be and is pretty much almost all the way there, and continue studying the Bible and is going to choose to follow Christ no matter what, whether or not they end up with you or not, then you might have found, but it's rare. Don't make the exception the rule. Just because it's happened for one person doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. You know, like if you smoke, like your chances of getting lung cancer, esophageal cancer, mouth cancer are like 80, 90%. But everyone has that person that was 100 and something and still smoked. Yeah, there's always that one guy. But the chances of you being that one guy are astronomically low. Don't make the exception the rule. Same thing happens there. We don't have very much time. I want one more question. I think what I'd like to do is maybe the next time we do this, I don't know if there's a way we can save these questions or kind of export them, but maybe we can address these questions at the next one. But I do want to take a look at one more, and that's how long should the talking stage be before dating? And then we'll end with that. How long do you think the talking stage should be before dating? Five years is best. No. Do you want to start?
He's saying that coming from a couple who got married only months after meeting each other, so.
We are the exception, not the rule.
That is an awkward time where you're still talking, but you're not sure how he feels about you. And so many people have come to us like, what do? I don't think he's serious about me. And meanwhile, there's this other guy wanting to get to know me. How do I know? It's a really awkward stage to know. But to me, when we were in the talking stage, we were like, we're both very serious-minded people. We didn't want to date just to have a friend. We had other friends for that. So we wanted to date to find a future spouse. So we right away were talking about like church school versus public school, or diet and homeschool, or diet or family worship. How important is that to you? Or, you know, like all the big ones. And I think once you've talked about all that, in combination with seeing the person's character and personality play out in how they interact with people who are older than them, that they should be respectful to, people who are younger than them, that you can see they care for and interact with well. You can see their character coming out. You can see they have integrity, they have work ethic, all the things you're looking for in a man or the things you're looking for in a woman. Then I would start dating. It didn't take us too long to see that because we were in an unusual, unique situation. But we did talk about the big things because we both wanted to find a spouse, not just to hang out together.
And that's all I wanted to bring to it, just very briefly. I think maturity is the real answer to that question. There's no length of time. Like if you wait a year, it's going to be perfect. Like no, it won't. There are some people that talk for a year and in the same friend group for a year, and neither of them are ready for a relationship yet. And there are others who maybe have done it for 2 months and they're ready. Maturity has a lot to play in it. What are you expecting? What are you looking for in the relationship? And being as much upfront about that in the beginning that you can. Now, everything needs to start off first with friendship. I wouldn't just go up to a complete stranger and say like, hey, you know, I think we could make a good team together. Are you interested? Like, to me personally, that's not me. If you're that guy, all the best to you. You know, like, I wish you luck. But in a general sense, I like to form friends. Cast your net wide with friendship. You don't lose anything by being friends with people, by going to places, by going to the Vespers, by going to various things. Like, get involved in as many things as you can where there are other young people.
Groups of people.
Groups of people, it's great. As you see that there is more like conversation happening, you may start thinking, well, and usually you will know that because you stop talking about the weather. And you stop talking about just classes and assignments. Because this is the superficial stuff. When you start talking more in terms of like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is not a random question. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the one interrupting, but I know we're short on time. When I first met Andy, we talked for an hour and a half straight about, can you guess, his favorite topic? God and the Bible. And I could not believe it. And I wasn't the kind of girl I wasn't thinking in terms of I liked him at that point. I was just like, wow, I've never met any guy like this before. I have friends who are girls who could talk about God for an hour and a half straight and never have an awkward silence or anything. The whole time we're just like talking about the Bible and the Lord, and it was just amazing. So when you find that person, you find the person who's right, you know, and then it moves beyond just friendship and you start talking about more serious things like you're saying.
But I would say, as soon as your conversation starts going deeper, and you see that there's reciprocation, when you start talking about what is it that you want from life, what are your goals in life, where do you see yourself 5 years from now, like what kind of family, where would you like to live? Like sometimes these are non-negotiables, right? Like some of you want to just stay in Texas. That's where you were born, that's where you're gonna die. That's okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but realize that someone else may not have that opinion. Like finding that out earlier. I'm not a fan of going into deep questions right away, but I'm also not a fan of leaving them so long because you're just wasting time. Does that make sense? Within a couple of months, if you are talking, you should be able to get there and be able to address things. And then you're gonna know, depending on the answers, I think there might be something there and we could make a go of this, or we're gonna be really great friends, but I don't think we're made to be together, so to speak. That's all that we have for you.
Can we give Pastor Andy and Christina a big round of applause? There were some really good questions, so maybe we need like a part 2 follow-up, like in the evening sometime, like we just get together. Okay, I have a few people that need to make announcements real quick. Christian, Vusa, Timothy, and Jillian. Hey, next week, our assembly is departmental, so you guys got to go to your departmental assemblies on Tuesday. We understand it's spring break, so assembly next week is on Tuesday. If you guys have an announcement, no one has an announcement? Vusa, where are you? Christian? Okay. Yep.
Yo, can I get the essay slide, please? Thank you. So we have elections coming up for essay. We don't have a date just yet. Applications will be available next week. So please start thinking about positions. If you want to come to me or any officers, think about it. It's a really good chance. You get paid. It's a really good opportunity. It looks great on a resume, and you can serve your peers. So if you're interested, talk to me. Talk to anyone on essay. We would love to chat with you.
If I could get the kinesiology slide up. Basically, we have a volleyball tournament on Sunday from 3. We still have some spots open, and we would love to have you guys come out and play with us. And we have wings that we're also going to be eating. We just want to have a good time. So if you're not doing anything on Sunday, come out. And then Friday, we also have, like she's saying, kinesiology vespers. So at the upper room at 6 to 7:30, where there'll also be pizza. And so not just for kinesiology people, but for everybody, if you want to come out there. We would love to have you, so thank you.
Hello. I don't know if they have the slide, but Saturday at 2 p.m. we'll be having the Uplift Card Ministry, and so basically we'll just be just writing cards and stuff to missionaries and ACA people who are out, and I'd really encourage you to come because we come to a really special school that encourages you to serve and to love on one another just like Christ did. And so I'm just really encouraging you to be there. It's short. Just write a nice message and move on with your day. Thank you.
Gymnastics acrobats. I have your thank you meal card up here. So just see me. And also, we have a crossword puzzle that we're going to put out. We're going to put it on the SLAT office, and it's about week of prayer to see how attentive you are, and to see if you guys can answer those questions and maybe win something. So stop by and get that crossword puzzle if you're interested.
And then we have departmental vespers this Friday, so just talk to your different departments or look on the TVs, look at your emails. They can run the slides. So it's at various locations, so just go to your departmental vespers this Friday. I'm going to ask Dean to close us with prayer.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity and the privilege that we've had to listen to Pastor Andy and his wife. We ask that you continue to guide us and direct us, and especially as they've talked about in terms of our relationships and the way we value one another. Be with us now as we depart from assembly, but always keep us close to one another, and especially close to your guidance and your presence with us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.